Hello friends, and welcome back to our channel. Have you ever felt the burdens of life weighing so heavily on your shoulders that it's almost hard to breathe? Have you ever looked at the challenges ahead and felt they were giant, insurmountable mountains, while you were just a tiny grain of sand? If the answer is yes, then today's story is for you. This is a story that might completely change how you perceive every difficulty in life. It's about a young boy who believed his problems were far too heavy to carry. But that boy, like so many of us, didn't realize one simple truth. Most problems aren't as big as they seem, and their solutions are often right in front of us. Stay with me through this story. Take a deep breath, relax your mind, and listen. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled among green fields, lived a boy named Arav. Arav was a clever, bright boy, but he carried a terrible habit. He worried too much. He had a special talent for turning even the smallest difficulty into a catastrophic mountain. He didn't just see problems, he lived in them. If the weather was too hot, he would wail, "My goodness. How can anyone work in this scorching heat?" If the teacher gave him homework, he would slump over his desk. Impossible. This is clearly impossible to finish. And if his mother asked him to help with chores, he would mutter, "Why does every hard thing always fall on me?" Day by day, Arav's complaints grew. The boy sighed more than he breathed, and slowly, the negative cloud that Arav carried began to affect those around him. People started to avoid him. Friends no longer invited him to play. Because, nobody likes being around someone who only sees problems. His heavy energy made them tired. One evening, as the sun set and the air grew heavy with Arav's endless sighs, his father could bear it no longer. But it wasn't annoyance. It was a deep concern. He called Arav over. "Son," he said, his voice calm, "come with me. I want to show you something." Arav, with reluctant curiosity, followed his father. He didn't know where they were going, only that his father's steps were steady. They walked for a long time, past the harvested fields, until they reached a small pond at the edge of the village. The water was flat, stagnant, and quiet. The father handed Arav a small handful of salt. "Throw it in the pond, son." Arav did as his father asked. The salt quickly vanished into the murky water. The father continued, "Now, taste the water from the pond." Arav looked at his father skeptically, but he bent down and scooped up a mouthful. Immediately, he spat it out forcefully. "Pah! It's so bitter, father. Acrid!" he exclaimed. The father simply nodded calmly, offering no explanation. Then he gave Arav another handful of salt, exactly the same size as the first. "Keep walking." This time, he led him to the bank of a wide, majestic river nearby. The water was flowing powerfully, carrying with it an intense vitality. "Throw this handful in here." Arav obeyed. The salt sank and was instantly swallowed by the river. "Now," his father said, "taste the river water." Arav was hesitant, but he cupped his hands, scooped up the cool river water, and took a drink. He looked up, his eyes wide with astonishment. It's still fresh. I can't taste the saltiness at all." The father smiled, a gentle and wise smile. He placed his hand on Arav's shoulder and said, "My son, life's problems are just like these handfuls of salt. They are always there, and their amount never changes. It's the same amount of salt. But the feeling of bitterness, the acrid taste you experience, it depends entirely on the size of the container holding it. If you keep your heart small like that stagnant pond, just a small problem is enough to make your entire life bitter. But if you learn to grow your heart, to expand your mind to be as vast as this river, that no matter how much salt is thrown in, you will hardly feel its bitterness at all. You will dissolve it. To his father's words, like small pebbles dropped into the calm lake of Arav's mind, created ripples of contemplation. For the first time in his life, the boy realized that perhaps this world wasn't as harsh as he had always thought. Perhaps the problem wasn't life itself, but how he perceived it. That night, lying on his familiar bed, Arav couldn't stop thinking about the narrow pond and the vast river. He whispered to himself, his voice filled with determination. If I remain like that small pond, I will only continue to suffer. But if I can become the river, I can overcome anything. From the very next morning, a new light dawned in Arav's soul. He decided to change, little by little, day by day. When his teacher assigned extra homework, instead of complaining, "Impossible," Arav told himself, "This is my chance to get better. I will learn more." A slight smile appeared on his lips, for the first time in many months. When his mother asked him to carry heavy buckets of water from the well, he no longer grumbled. Instead, Arav smiled and thought, "This is how I will grow stronger. My body will be tempered." And even when the scorching sun burned his back, instead of groaning, the boy looked up, took a deep breath, and whispered, "This is just another test. I can face it." To be honest, it wasn't easy at first. The old habit of complaining still tried to pull him back. Sometimes he still felt a bit annoyed, a bit like giving up. But every time that feeling arose, Arav remembered his father's words about the pond and the river. He used those words as motivation to push himself forward. Weeks turned into months, and then months turned into more months. And something beautiful, something truly wonderful began to happen. Arav had truly changed. He was no longer the boy who cried and complained about every little thing. Everyone around him began to notice his unusual calmness. His friends wanted to spend more time with Arav. They saw him as happier and more positive now. His teacher praised him in class for his diligence and eagerness to learn. His parents, their hearts filled with pride as they witnessed their son's growth. And most importantly, Arav felt much lighter from deep within. He was no longer weighed down by minor problems. Problems, of course, still came. Sudden storms, stressful exams, endless chores. They remained an unavoidable part of life. But Arav no longer drowned in them. Instead, he floated on their surface like the river, gently carrying leaves, branches, and even stones without obstruction. He carried them with ease. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the entire sky a brilliant orange, Arav sat quietly by the river. He was no longer the complaining Arav of yesterday. He watched the water flow endlessly, carrying leaves, dry branches, and even pebbles without stopping, without slowing down. The river accepted everything and continued its journey to the great sea. Arav smiled, a smile of true inner peace. He whispered, not to anyone, but to himself, to the universe. It turns out, every problem in life has a simple solution. The point is never to remove the salt, because the salt will always exist. The point is, we must become the river. My dear friends, remember this. Carry this story with you. Life, assuredly, will always bring challenges. There will be hard days. There will be nights that feel endless, when you feel like the loneliest person in the world. Your handful of salt might be a bill that needs paying, a broken relationship, a failure at work, or a deep-seated anxiety. But the answer is never to complain. The answer is not to run away. The answer is to grow bigger, to open your heart wider, to expand your mind, to grow your compassion for yourself and for the world around you, to learn to face your problems with a steady calmness, just as the river accepts everything that flows through it. Because the truth, in the end, is incredibly simple. The problems don't shrink. We grow. And when we grow, when our perspective becomes grander, every problem, no matter how much it looked like a giant mountain before, suddenly becomes small. They are merely pebbles beneath our feet. So from this moment on, whenever you feel stuck, whenever you feel that life is just too bitter, pause for a second, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, right now, am I being the stagnant pond, or am I being the great river? Thank you for listening.